since 1966.
This is NBC4's News Conference with Conan Nolan, Southern California's longest-running public affairs program.
On our first program of the new year, the City of Los Angeles kicks off 2020 with a new leader of its 15-member city council. Nury Martinez, the first Latina council president. We ask her about the homeless crisis, the city's building boom, and concerns over the influence of developers following several raids of city offices by the FBI. Plus, it's looking like 2020 is the year the Mexican drug cartels take full aim at California with an avalanche of counterfeit prescription drugs, and the death toll is rising. We talk with Special Agent in Charge Bill Bodner, the head of the Los Angeles field office for the DEA, and presidential candidate Tom Steyer on why he believes Washington needs to get involved in California's housing crisis. Good morning and welcome to the Tom Brokaw News Center here at Universal City. I'm Conan Nolan, hoping you had a very happy New Year and holiday celebration. A new year which for the Los Angeles City Council starts as of today with a new council president, Nury Martinez, who represents Council District 6, the eastern San Fernando Valley, including Sun Valley and Van Nuys. Congratulations and thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me here.
First Latina president of the LA City Council, a very important role. You essentially 15 members. And you set the agenda. How do you like that?
Well, I'm very fortunate. First of all, I'm very honored to have gotten the unanimous support of my colleagues on the City Council. It's an honor not only to represent my community on the neighborhoods that I represent on the council, but also making history. Feels really, really good. When I was growing up, little girls that looked like me and spoke like me never thought they would have these kind of opportunities. So it's a lot, and I'm certainly excited to lead the council, and I look forward to a new year.
A lot on the agenda. I know that you have a speech coming up on the 14th. You're going to unveil your agenda there. But one thing people will be thinking about is the credibility this council has with the city. We've had 2 FBI raids of city council offices. There are certainly complaints or criticisms that members of the council are too closely tied to the development interests. How are you going to deal with that issue?
You know, I've been in office now for 17 years. People forget that before I was elected to the LA City Council, I served in other 2 capacities. So I've been in office for 17 years, and I've held myself to the highest standards. And I believe in due process for everyone who's been involved in some of these raids at the FBI. But in the City Council and as elected officials, we have to continue to ensure that we don't lose, you know, the public trust. We have to continue to restore public trust. And that's what we got elected to do. No matter what your intentions are, I believe that the public deserves to see a transparent city council. I think they deserve to see people that got elected to represent them do their job every single day. And that's what I'm committed to doing.
Do you believe that the council and members of the city council have been above board in dealing with the development interests in the city?
You know, I don't have the specifics of every single case. As you mentioned, there's been 2 FBI raids. I'm not privy to that information. But every given Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday when we show up to vote on critical issues, I believe my colleagues are there to do their job.
Fundamental issue relating to housing is the homeless crisis. Were you disappointed that the U.S. Supreme Court decided not to take the Boise case? I should point out the Boise case is the decision by the Ninth Circuit that allows people, it keeps the city from enforcing the no camping laws on sidewalks.
Yeah. And so I see the frustration in people's eyes. When I walk into my neighborhoods, any community meeting, you will immediately sense a sense of frustration that community has in terms of, you know, seeing the overwhelming presence of homeless encampments in and around our communities. I am disappointed because I think the courts would have given us more clarity in terms of what we need to provide in terms of housing and services. And also it allows us to create a balance between neighborhoods who are being inundated with people sleeping on the sidewalk. This is no win for anyone. For people sleeping on the sidewalks and unfortunately dying on our streets, and for the neighborhoods who are inundated with homeless encampments. For example, my neighborhoods in Van Nuys and Panorama City, when I drive Van Nuys Boulevard or I'm along the Orange Line corridor, you see the abundance of people suffering on our streets. At the same time, I see children walking to school every day, walking over needles and bodies on their way to school or on their way to the library. How is that any sense of dignity for anyone? So the Boise case, it's unfortunate. We were hoping to get more clarity from the courts and to also prevent us from having more litigation in the future. It wasn't going to prevent us from doing our job, which is building more housing and providing more services, which is what we should continue to be doing. But at the same time, we have got to create a balance for our neighborhoods that are inundated with homeless encampments.
For those people out there who think, you know, this may be the new normal. We have
made very little inroads into this problem. And every time we do something, we develop a shelter, more people show up.
You know, this cannot be the new normal, and we cannot accept people living on our sidewalks. This is not America. This is not the community that I grew up in. I think we have got to, there's a couple of issues. We've got to build things faster and cheaper. It's so expensive to build new housing in Los Angeles. The other thing is we also need to hold other communities accountable, and it needs to be equitable across the board. You cannot just expect communities like my district, for example, to build all the, the services for all homeless people. I think we all need to share in the solution of solving homelessness. For example, my district in the San Fernando Valley historically has had more homeless supportive, units of housing being built, and we've exceeded our 222 mandate that the City Council, passed a couple of years ago, where all of us were going to share in building this affordable housing unit through Measure HHH. I've exceeded over 300 units. I'm on my way to building over 300 units, more than I was expected to build, not counting what I've already built. So my district is doing that. We need to ensure that other communities are doing their fair share as well.
Let's talk about housing, not just for the homeless, but housing for a workforce that is seeing rents climb dramatically. There's a state senator in San Francisco, Scott Wiener, who had a bill, Senate Bill 50, we're going to hear about it again, that requires cities like Los Angeles to build high-density housing along transit lines. You only can go up. You can't build more single-family homes. That's the idea. How do you stand? Where do you stand on that?
So I wasn't supportive of the initial Wiener bill only because I think it's unfair for Los Angeles. We are building housing, but there's communities in the county of Los Angeles, other cities that are not doing their fair share. How do we get those cities? And I don't want to mention too many of them.
Oh, mention them.
But I mean, for example, communities like Burbank and Glendale and Simi Valley and parts of Santa Clarita, what are they doing to meet their housing needs? And Los Angeles is doing its fair share. We feel like communities like mine have been building housing for decades now. But how do we ensure that the surrounding cities around Los Angeles are doing their fair share? So I get what the Wiener intent is. I just want to make sure we're comparing apples to apples, and we're just not looking at Los Angeles and saying, let's make sure Los Angeles builds housing for every single, for people in LA County. That's not necessarily fair either. We need to ensure that other cities in LA County are building the necessary housing to meet their housing needs as well.
Let me ask you one final question. There have been routinely, before the council, unanimous votes. It just seems like that the most recent LA City Councils have had less debate on issues because there's sort of a groupthink. Is that going to change under your leadership?
I'm very direct, and people who work with me know that I don't mince words. I like debate. I like to have conversations. I like to agree to disagree with people, in a respectful way. I hope that a lot of this debate also takes place in some of the committee hearings, because people are expecting us to debate issues and come out with the best solution for people's problems. But I also am not afraid of taking an 8-7 vote, as long as we're moving the needle forward. So that's my style of leadership. When you can't get a unanimous vote, that's great, but that's not always possible. So I look forward to debate and to have transparency for people to actually see what the City Council does and what it stands for.
Nury Martinez is the new president of the Los Angeles City Council, the first Latina in the history of this city. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
And good luck.
Thank you.